They taped the letter to my door like they wanted the whole street to see it. Bright orange. Block print. HOA letterhead with notice of violation stamped at the top. I didn't even get a chance to put down my grocery bags before I knew who it was about. Max, my dog. A 7-year-old golden retriever who's never bitten, barked, or bolted. He spends most of his time napping in the sunroom or rolling around in the backyard. Like a furry idiot, not exactly a threat to the neighborhood. I tore the letter down and read it. Canine breed does not comply with Article 9A. Dangerous or prohibited pets. Violation may result in fines and forced removal of the animal if non-compliant. I stood there for a full minute. They were calling Max dangerous, a golden retriever. The most weaponized thing he'd ever done was lick a toddler until she fell over laughing. But I already knew who did it. Karen Bishop, HOA board secretary, lives to houses down, drives a brand new Range Rover, and somehow always has a clipboard. She once reported a neighbor's rose bush for growing too freely. A few months ago, she saw Max off leash in our own yard for 10 seconds and gave me a full lecture about community trust. I tried to play it calm. I emailed the board, sent Max's full vet records, obedience certificates, and even a letter from my old landlord saying he'd been a model pet. I explained he's never left the yard, never been aggressive, and that there is zero basis for labeling him prohibited. They responded 3 days later with a PDF attachment and a $300 fine. I printed it, highlighted the lines, read the entire HOA charter cover to cover. Nowhere did it say anything about retrievers or even specific breeds. Just vague phrases like at the board's discretion and dogs deemed a risk to harmony. Harmony, and apparently, Max's face broke the damn rules of harmony. My neighbor George caught me pacing on the sidewalk that night. "You get one too?" he asked, holding up his own orange violation sheet. His was for disorderly lawn appearance. George has stage 4 cancer and can barely hold a rate. That's when it clicked. It wasn't about Max. It was about control. Karen and her little inner circle on the HOA board were pushing people out, slowly, quietly, one fine at a time, targeting people who didn't play their game. People like George. People like me, single, low maintenance, unbothered by the block party politics. I wasn't just going to fight this. I was going to bury them with it. I had 3 things they didn't know about me. 1, I kept everything. Every notice, every letter, every photo. 2, my sister is a litigation attorney who hates HOA letters. 3, and I had 4 separate videos of Karen walking her dog off-leash across common grounds. Exactly what I've been accused of. I didn't just want the fine reversed. I wanted the entire board to feel what it's like to lose control. And Max, he was about to become the most famous dog in this subdivision's history. I started small. Paper trail first. I filed a formal appeal with the HOA knowing damn well they'd deny it. That was the point. I needed the denial in writing. Needed them to commit to the lie so I could start pinning it down. They responded in exactly 48 hours. Copy-paste language. Per board consensus, the violation stands. Continued presence of said animal may incur additional fines and legal action. Consensus. That meant Karen got her buddies, Matt from Lot 6 and Elena from the corner house, to vote. Both of them had been on the board for over 5 years. Both own purebred dogs with official HOA registration cards. Yeah, that's a thing here. The next morning, I called my sister, Vanessa. She practices property law in Chicago and once described HOA letters as the gym teachers of civil code. I laid out everything: the letter, the fine, the appeals, the language in the charter. She went quiet for a moment, then said, "They use the term dangerous breed with no formal criteria." Yep, and there's no listed breed. Ban in the covenant. Correct. Perfect. Let's ruin them. We filed a cease and desist notice on Monday. Vanessa had me deliver it personally, not by email, not in the HOA mailbox. I knocked on Karen's door while wearing a shirt that said Max is innocent in block letters. She opened the door like she expected an apology. I handed her the envelope and said, "You might want to read that with a lawyer." She didn't blink, just pursed her lips and said, "If you're trying to intimidate me." I cut her off. "No, just reminding you there's a leash law in the state and you broke it 4 times. On camera." I left before she could slam the door. The next few days, I saw the fear set in. Karen started walking her dog with a leash and sunglasses. Matt from Lot 6 suddenly stopped waving. Elena took her usual evening stroll with a clipboard tucked under her arm, eyes darting like she expected ambush. But here's the thing. I hadn't even filed the suit yet. That came later, after the media got involved. I posted a video, just one. A montage of Max being Max, licking kids, helping me with groceries. Sitting patiently in the front yard, overlaid text explained the whole story. At the end, I added footage of Karen's dog, prancing through HOA common space off leash, followed by a still image of the violation letter they gave me. Caption: "This is Max. The HOA says he's dangerous. They fined me, but not her." I woke up the next morning to 20,000 views, then 40,000. By noon, local reporters were emailing me for interviews. I agreed to one, only one, and made sure Vanessa vetted every word I said. That's when things escalated. A neighbor I barely knew knocked on my door. "I have something," he said. "Thought you should see it." He handed me an old thumb drive. It's minutes from board meetings, the kind they don't publish. Inside, records of Karen and her crew fining specific homeowners, all non-board members, at 5 times the rate of board-affiliated addresses, names, addresses, amounts, dates. Some of those people had moved out, some had foreclosed. I looked down at Max, curled up in the kitchen, wagging his tail. "Let's go bankrupt some bullies," I said. By the end of the week, 5 more neighbors had reached out. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who got the dangerous animal letter. Neither was Max the only dog they'd targeted. A retired nurse up the street said her beagle had been flagged for anxious barking. A single dad down the block had a fine for his German shepherd walking too close to the sidewalk. All vague language, all non-appealable, according to the board. Vanessa and I started calling it soft eviction. They weren't enforcing safety. They were picking off people who didn't conform or didn't curry favor, quietly pushing them out, one absurd violation at a time. The thumb drive was the nail in the coffin. We spent a full night cross-referencing board meeting notes, fines, and county tax records. Vanessa had a system, spreadsheet columns, color-coded flags, financial thresholds. When we were done, we had a list of 16 residents who'd been disproportionately fined or penalized. 9 of them no longer lived here. 3 had gone into pre-foreclosure and 2 were actively being sued by the HOA for unpaid dues, even though our state caps those fines at a fixed amount. That's when Vanessa leaned back and said, "They're cooked, but let's salt the earth." We filed a civil suit. The next morning, class action. 6 of us as plaintiffs. Max was mentioned by name. So were Karen, Matt, and Elena, specifically for malicious and fraudulent enforcement of HOA policy, selective application of penalties, and intentional emotional distress caused by ungrounded animal violation claims. We weren't just asking for money. We were asking for an audit of the HOA's financials and a temporary freeze on their power to fine residents during the investigation. The last part, that's what set the fire. Karen tried to do damage control. She posted an open letter to the community on the HOA Facebook page, accusing me of leading a misinformation campaign designed to dismantle the spirit of Clearwinds. She painted me as an angry loner, said Max was an unpredictable animal, and that the video I posted was selectively edited to mislead the public. Bad move. I uploaded the unedited footage. Then I added Karen's letter, redlined by Vanessa, with every lie highlighted, followed by the clause in the HOA charter it violated. People started taking sides. Some defended the board, said Rules are rules, and that HOA letters keep communities clean. But others had stories. Fines they'd never challenged, repairs they made out of fear. Remarks Karen made at meetings that didn't feel right, but nobody recorded. Now they were remembering. That weekend, someone spray painted "Max did nothing wrong" on the clubhouse wall. 2 lawn signs popped up that said, "Is your dog next?" I got a certified letter that Monday. The HOA wanted an emergency meeting, closed session, legal matters, they said. I went anyway, not as a participant, as press. My friend Jenna writes for the local paper. I gave her every document, every video, every name. She walked in with a notebook and a voice recorder. Karen nearly fainted when she saw her. The story hit actual news the next day. Front page of the regional section. Homeowners sue HOA over dog fine. Accused board of financial abuse. Underneath was Max's face, tongue out, looking like he just solved the crime. They started knocking on doors. Not the board members, their lawyer. Some guy in a too-tight suit named Richard Holloway, hired by the HOA as crisis counsel. He went house to house trying to smooth things over, offering mediation options and non-binding settlements to anyone listed in our lawsuit. George told him to leave his porch or he'd get his oxygen tank and make a scene. I didn't even open the door, just watched through the peephole as he stood there, hands clasped, like he expected a handshake. He left a business card with community restoration specialist scribbled on the back. Karen was unraveling. She stopped walking her dog altogether. Elena deleted her Facebook account. Matt took down his campaign signs for neighborhood safety chair. And the clubhouse suddenly locked during business hours. No more public pool. No more Taste of Clearwinds flyers taped to light poles. I think they thought if they disappeared, the heat would die down. Instead, it got hotter. Vanessa filed a motion to subpoena the HOA's internal accounting software. Turns out, they used a third-party management company that handled dues, fines, and late fees, and they took a cut of everything collected. Here's the kicker. The more the HOA fined people, the more the management company profited. We got those records, every payment, every fee, every processing adjustment. And they showed something we hadn't even guessed. Fake fines. Literal line items for violations that were never issued to the residents. Backdated entries with no matching citations or letters. One woman had paid nearly $3,200 over for years for things that were never filed. When Vanessa showed me the spreadsheet, she pointed at the red cells. Fraud. RICO-level fraud if we push hard enough. My stomach dropped. I'd wanted to win. I hadn't expected this. That week, I got another letter from the HOA. Different tone this time. Softer font, no bold, no fines, just a request. If you're willing to drop the suit, we're open to discussing community-based solutions to this unfortunate situation. Vanessa laughed for a full minute straight. I wrote back, Max is still dangerous, right? I think the court would love to hear how you reached the decision. We didn't hear from them again, but we did hear from someone else. A woman named Diana showed up at my door. Late 60s. Conservative dress, glasses, clipboard. She introduced herself as an auditor from the State Homeowners Oversight Committee. Apparently, our lawsuit triggered something. They'd been watching Clearwinds for months. Complaints, financial irregularities. A whistleblower from the management company had filed a report, and now they were combing through 5 years of HOA activity. She asked if we'd be willing to speak on record. I said yes. Max licked her shoe. She smiled. Doesn't look that dangerous to me. Later that night, I saw the clubhouse lights still on at 11 p.m. for silhouettes in the window. Moving fast, packing things. The audit changed everything. We weren't just 6 angry neighbors anymore. We were witnesses in a potential fraud case, now backed by a state agency. And that meant rules. Everything had to go through proper channels. No more flyers. No more viral videos. Vanessa said, "We've made our noise. Now we let the system listen. But the silence was worse. For weeks, there were no updates, just whispers that Karen was hiring private counsel, that Elena was trying to step down quietly, that Matt was claiming he'd never really been involved in the decisions. Standard rats leaving a sinking ship stuff. Then something weird happened. Max started getting mail. No joke. To envelopes addressed to the dog at lot 22, no return address. Inside the first, a cutout newspaper headline of our lawsuit, circled in red. Inside the second, a single photo, Max lying on the porch, tongue out. Date stamped from 4 nights ago. Creepy. Deliberate. Whoever sent it was trying to rattle me. I showed it to Vanessa. She squinted at the photo, then tapped the bottom. Right corner. That house across the street. That's the Mitchells. They've got a ring cam. Think they'd let us check footage. They did. We found the car. A silver sedan pulled up at 17 a.m. Driver got out, hoodie up, walked up to my porch, dropped the envelope, then backed out with no lights. The car wasn't visible on the plates, but the motion sensor caught one clear detail. A tattoo on the driver's wrist when they reached up to fix the hood. A compass, just like the one on Matt's forearm. Vanessa filed a notice with the court the next day. Potential witness intimidation attempt, she wrote. Request protective status for all co-plaintiffs. That got things moving. The state sent us a liaison. Diana was replaced by a younger guy named Trevor who specialized in HOA fraud cases. He asked for all our communications, physical letters, videos, the whole file. When Vanessa handed it over, he flipped through the envelope photos, then said, "This isn't just a bad board. This is a racket." And with that, the investigation went public. A month later, Clearwinds HOA was formally cited for improper handling of member funds, falsified violations for financial gain, breach of covenant transparency laws, and retaliatory behavior against residents. It was all over the news, not just local now, statewide. The story was packaged like a suburban thriller. HOA versus a dog owner turns into multi-year fraud. Uncovered by lawsuit, Max got fan mail. I got calls from reporters, lawyers, even a podcast host who wanted to do a series. I said no to most of it. I wasn't in it for fame. I was in it for George, for the retired nurse with a beagle, for the people who paid and left, thinking they'd done something wrong. And yeah, for Max, the dog who'd somehow pissed off a bureaucracy by just being a dog. Next up was the court date, but we weren't walking in alone anymore. Now we had the state behind us and a room full of neighbors ready to testify. The courtroom was freezing, not metaphorically, literally cold. Fluorescence buzzed overhead. The AC was too strong, and the walls were this sickly gray, like they wanted justice to feel depressing. I sat behind the plaintiff table next to Vanessa, wearing the one suit I owned. Max, of course, wasn't allowed inside. He was home with Jenna, watching squirrels and chewing on a frozen peanut butter Kong. Karen sat across from us. She looked off, less polished. No makeup, no smug half smile. Just a dull stare and a pile of manila folders in front of her. Elena wasn't there. Matt showed up late, wearing a borrowed tie and looking like he'd barely slept. They didn't bring a lawyer. The whole board, the same people who'd bullied, fined, and threatened their own neighbors for years, had chosen to represent themselves. Vanessa leaned toward me and whispered, "This is either arrogance or they ran out of money. Probably both." The hearing wasn't the trial, not yet. It was a preliminary session. The judge wanted to hear our case, review our evidence, and determine whether we had grounds for damages and punitive action. The state rep, Trevor, sat behind us. He wasn't allowed to intervene, just observe. Vanessa spoke first. She was clinical, calm. No theatrics. She explained how our HOA had issued baseless citations, selectively fined residents, fabricated violation histories, and manipulated common area rules without member approval. She showed the spreadsheet, the audit, and the video footage. Then came the emotional side. George took the stand. So did the retired nurse. Both talked about feeling watched, harassed, like they were trespassers in their own homes. George teared up when he said he thought he was losing his mind, that maybe he was doing something wrong. Then I took the stand. I didn't read from notes. I just told the truth about Max, about the letter, about walking into the clubhouse and hearing my name read like a warning. I told them what it felt like to be told your dog, the gentlest thing in your life, was somehow offensive to a neighborhood you'd never hurt. I held up the envelope with the photo. I told them about the tattoo. Matt squirmed in his seat. When the board got their turn to speak, it was a disaster. Karen claimed it was all miscommunication, that the board was overwhelmed, that the management company had automated too many processes, and they never intended for anyone to feel unsafe. Matt said nothing, just kept his eyes down. The judge stopped her midway through a ramble and asked, "Did you falsify fine records for residents who never received violations?" Karen paused long before saying, "I don't recall." Vanessa leaned toward me and whispered, "That's not how this ends." She was right. The judge called a recess outside. In the hallway, Karen finally cracked. I heard her say to her phone, maybe her husband, maybe a lawyer, "We're going to lose everything." Vanessa smiled. We didn't get a ruling that day, but we didn't need it. The judge said the case had merit on all counts and would move the full trial, with jury review of damages. For the first time since this started, I felt something strange. Hope. 3 days after the hearing, Karen put her house up for sale. The listing went live at 3 a.m. No open house. No sign in the yard. Just a blurry set of interior photos and a description that read, "Motivated seller. Great potential. As is." Word got around fast. Elena had already left, moved in with her sister in Tucson. Matt stopped showing up to board meetings entirely. But the HOA didn't dissolve. Not yet. Their bylaws had a clause. If more than 2 board members resign, the remaining member has 30 days to appoint replacements. Otherwise, the HOA triggers an emergency election. And guess who was left? Karen thought she tried to install 2 of her friends, neighbors nobody had seen at a single meeting in years. One of them had just moved in last summer. The other worked part-time at a vape shop and once tried to fight a teenager at the pool. Vanessa sent a cease and desist immediately. "You're not patching holes in a sinking ship," she wrote. "You're trying to drag others down with you." That letter, it hit harder than expected, because later that night, Matt called me. I didn't pick up at first. Let it go to voicemail. But what I heard stopped me cold. "I can't do this anymore. They made me sign off on the violations. I didn't even know they were fake until after. Karen said the audit would never go anywhere. I have records. I save copies. If I talk, can I make this right?" I called him back, and for the first time since this nightmare started, Matt told the truth. He emailed Vanessa every file he had, internal emails, handwritten fine logs, even draft letters Karen never sent. One of them was about me, another about George. A third was a template labeled possible emotional language to justify fine increases. It was sociopathic. Vanessa added it all to the case file. The state rep, Trevor, sent a quiet note the next day. That last file may trigger criminal inquiry. Tell your clients to prepare for depositions. It stopped being a civil case at that point. We weren't just asking for compensation. We were exposing systemic abuse. Karen had created a system that punished disobedience with paperwork, turned compliance into currency, and weaponized language like community standard and resident harmony to silence dissent. And now, the people she fined, threatened, and ignored were testifying against her. The next town hall was packed. Not a real meeting, just neighbors. People needed to talk. To figure out what came next, George stood up and read the original letter Karen sent him 2 years ago. He cried halfway through it, then looked out at everyone and said, "I thought I was the problem. I thought I failed this neighborhood. Turns out I just wasn't part of their plan. They gave him a standing ovation, and for the first time in months, the clubhouse didn't feel like a place for punishment. It felt like home. Karen was served. At 6:42 a.m., process server knocked on her door, handed her the manila envelope, and walked away while she stood there in her robe, stunned. Inside, a state notice of criminal investigation, misappropriation of funds, falsification of records, and civil harassment through governance authority. It wasn't prison-level charges, not yet. But if she didn't settle or flip, things could escalate fast. Word spread before lunch. By evening, someone had updated the neighborhood bulletin board with a single page of printer paper. Karen has been served. The dog is still innocent. Max got a new chew toy that day, shaped like a gavel. Vanessa was calm through all of it, sharp as ever, but quiet. I found her at my kitchen table that night with a half glass of wine and her laptop glowing in the dark. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just stared at the screen. Then she said, "There are neighborhoods where this kind of thing happens and no one ever fights back. They just pay the fines, sell the house, and disappear." She closed the laptop, looked up at me. "You didn't." Matt's testimony sealed the board's fate and his deposition. He laid out the entire strategy, how Karen coached the board on how to phrase citations to avoid legal risk, how they tracked targeted properties in a private WhatsApp group, how they created a dummy compliance committee, just Karen, and a fake email account, so it looked like multiple people reviewed each fine. Every tactic was written down. Every lie was documented. He was offered immunity in exchange for full cooperation. He took it. Elena, on the other hand, refused to speak. But when the state seized her hard drive, they found a spreadsheet called Priority Lots, Discrete Removal. My name was on it. So was George. So were 11 others who'd either left or tried to fight back. The final civil hearing was short. The judge ordered a full audit of all HOA finances going back 10 years, appointed a temporary trustee to oversee operations, froze the HOA's authority to levy any new fines, required a complete rewrite of the bylaws under legal supervision, and approved monetary damages to all named plaintiffs. I was awarded $17,000. George got $25,000. Max got nothing. But I gave him a ribeye and a belly rub, which he preferred anyway. Karen was told she had 30 days to step down or face additional charges. She resigned that night by sliding a typed letter under Trevor's office door. It wasn't even signed. The next morning, I stood on my porch with a cup of coffee, Max at my feet, watching the sun come up over a street that finally felt quiet. A neighbor I didn't know well, Julia, I think, jogged by and said, "Hey, he's the reason we still live here." She meant Max, but part of me hoped she meant me too. There's no victory parade for this kind of thing. No banner, no applause, no grand unlocking of gates. Just a neighborhood slowly unclenching. Neighbors talking again. Porch lights staying on longer. Kids back on bikes. The silence changed. It used to feel tense. Now it just feels earned. We held a community meeting at the clubhouse. The first real one in years. No board, no fines. Just residents folding chairs. And a whiteboard with "What now?" scribbled in black marker. George sat in the front row with his oxygen tank and a fresh haircut. He leaned over to me and whispered, "You're running, right?" I shook my head. "Nope." He frowned. "Why not?" I pointed at Vanessa, standing near the back with her arms crossed, listening to suggestions from a woman who wanted garden boxes in the easements. I already won the war. I don't need to sit on the throne. Instead, I helped write the new bylaws. Vanessa and Trevor worked out the language. I worked the porch circuit, knocked on doors, explained what the changes meant, answered questions. Trust was still fragile, but people were listening. We stripped the enforcement powers to the bone. Fines capped at $50, no citations without photo evidence, and to board signatures. full transparency on budget and meeting notes, public votes on every officer. And we added a clause that didn't exist before. No pet may be cited or removed without a formal complaint to independent witnesses and veterinary confirmation of threat behavior. We called it Max's rule. People laughed when we read it aloud, but they voted for it unanimously. Karen moved out in silence. 2 men from a moving company packed her things into a U-Haul while she sat in the front seat of her car, staring at her phone like it held the answers to a different life. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't look at anyone. I didn't wave. But I didn't hate her either. Hate's too heavy to carry this long. A few days later, I found a small package on my porch. No return address. Inside was a leash, clean, unused red leather, and a sticky note. He deserved better. Sorry. And Matt, he was leaving too. Starting over in another state. I didn't know if he'd get forgiveness, but I hoped he'd earn peace. That night, Max curled up next to me on the couch like nothing had ever happened. But everything had. This wasn't just about a dog. It was about who gets to say what's normal, who belongs, who gets to speak without being punished. And we'd answered that, finally. The people do. We voted on a new board under string lights and a blue dusk sky. 3 folding tables on the clubhouse lawn, clipboards, pens, ballots, and manila envelopes. No private guards, no forced signatures. Just neighbors, old, young, tired, angry, relieved, taking 5 minutes to say, "This is ours now." George was elected president unanimously. I think people wanted someone who'd suffered under the old system and survived it, someone who wouldn't ever forget what it felt like to be powerless. He asked if I'd serve as vice president. I told him no, again, but said I'd help anytime he called. And I meant it. The HOA changed its name. Clearwinds was to tainted, to clinical. The full of the old rules and surveillance and threats masked as neighborliness. We renamed it Copper Hollow, a nod to the old mining trails in the hills behind. US something quiet, something grounded, something nobody could trademark into submission. On the first weekend of the new board term, we held a barbecue, not a formal HOA event, just a get-together in the cul-de-sac with burgers, cornhole, and a dog treat table labeled for a real residence. Max wore a paper crown someone made him. He posed for pictures with kids and got a best boy ribbon clipped to his collar. George gave a toast. This dog beat a bureaucracy, and this man made sure he didn't have to do it alone. I'll admit it, I choked up a little. Max, of course, threw up behind the grill an hour later after eating half a hot dog bun and an entire slice of American cheese. Hero's stomach. A few weeks later, I got a letter from the State Oversight Committee. Just a formal thank you. Really. But at the bottom, handwritten in pen, Trevor added, "Your case is being used in training for new HOA compliance officers. You made a mark." I folded it up and tucked it in the back of Max's vet folder, just in case anyone ever came knocking again. Late one night, I was walking Max down the sidewalk. Same stretch where all this started, when we passed the old clubhouse. Lights off, curtains open, and sitting on the porch, drinking something from a coffee mug, was Julia, the jogger who called Max the reason we still live here. She waved. I waved back. Then she asked, "Do you think we'll ever forget what happened?" I looked down at Max. "No," I said, "and I don't think we should, because forgetting would mean it could happen again." Max barked at a squirrel, then immediately forgot about it, tail wagging, eyes forward, always ready for the next block. Maybe that's the lesson, not just to fight, but to outlive the people who told you you didn't belong, and to walk the neighborhood you saved with nothing but a leash in your hand and your best friend trotting right beside you.